Hello everyone and welcome back to yet another average review, and for the third time now, we're taking a look at a Christmas present I got that's a figure of a deluxe, supersized X-Men related character. It's just a theme now, isn't it? That's right, we're taking a look at the Marvel Legends Deluxe X-Factor Strong Guy Build-A-Figure re-release. Well, it's more so just a lot of reuse of the Strong Guy Build-A-Figure. Now, taking a look at the front, and we can see that we have, Strong Guy's name, the Marvel Legends logo, and the X-Factor logo. On this side, we can see some cool comic art of Strong Guy. On the side, we can see his name, and also some close-up of some Strong Guy art. And on the back, we see some really different art, along with a pretty short bio that gets straight to the point for a more obscure character like Strong Guy. So yeah, overall, pretty decent, but also basic packaging, but come on. This figure looks crazy already just in terms of proportions. Let's get him out of the box. Alright, getting this Strong Guy out of the box, and I should mention that most of this figure is actually just reuse from a previously released Strong Guy Build-A-Fig. Pretty much the entire, body of the figure is removed. The only thing that's new are the alternate hands and the two heads that this figure comes with, and a very special accessory that we'll get to when we actually go over the accessories. But of course, another thing about this Strong Guy is that he does have a slightly different coat of paint. Now, let's start from the bottom up, and the legs are a pretty normal looking sculpt. They're very muscular legs. I like the buckles at the ankles. They look very nice. He's got it's an interesting belt. Definitely looks like something out of the 90s. We can see that he's got bits of blue and yellow on his torso, along with this big X logo. The bits of white painted onto here are actually different from the original release, because it was originally just like a yellow button with a red X, but now it's painted white. This spot of blue on the upper torso piece actually was originally yellow on the original Build-A-Fig, if I'm not mistaken, and this zipper also wasn't painted. Looking at the arms, and yeah, comparing the torso to the legs, Strong Guy has very ridiculous proportions, but it's accurate to how Strong Guy looks in the comics, and it definitely makes for a very unique figure. They actually painted the top of his shoulders a metallic blue, which is another difference from the original. And I will say, I do like the bit of a, wrinkly fabric look of the actual, arms, under the metal plating. It looks like Strong Guy's sleeves in the comics, and it does look pretty nice. We see similar glove cuffs to the belt and, ankle cuffs, and his hands are, actually, I think they're pretty small in comparison to his arms, which is also pretty accurate to Strong Guy's, ridiculous looking design. Now, looking at the head, and it's actually a pretty good, but, very exaggerated yelling head sculpt. Just like how most of this figure looks. It's very exaggerated and over the top, which is accurate to Strong Guy's design. We can see, the pretty much singular, bit of hair he has on the top of his head. His goggles are painted nicely, and there's a lot of good paintwork on the face. Recent Marvel Legends, whether you think the head sculpts themselves are good, they do have pretty good paint apps for the most part. Not much on the back of the figure, really, but, all the paint does continue onto the back. And I will say, I do like the color scheme of this figure. The dark blues meshed with, the bright yellows and the bright red on the X, along with the, shades of metallic silver and also the metallic blue on the shoulders, do look pretty nice. But hey, looks ain't everything. Let's take a look at this Strong Guy's articulation, because with a figure that has proportions as unique as this, we definitely gotta see how the actual range of this figure's joints are. Alright, starting off with the head articulation, and Strong Guy has a dumbbell joint in the neck. It lets him actually look up a pretty fair bit, despite, that collar on the back. He actually gets a pretty fair amount of looking down. He, of course, also gets turning all the way around and a fair amount of tilt side to side. He's got the standard Marvel Legends shoulders that can spin around and hinge up a... Well, that's a leftover from this being a Build-A-Fig, the arms detaching. The shoulders do lift up a bit under 90 degrees, which does make a fair bit of sense with how massive the actual shoulders are. He doesn't have a bicep swivel, but his elbows do spin all the way around and hinge. Whoops. That's another thing about this figure. It doesn't have great balance due to those little legs. He gets about a 90-degree bend at the elbows, maybe a little less, but he does have Marvel Legends style wrists that spin around and hinge forward and back. In terms of torso articulation, he seems to only have a diaphragm joint, which lets him hunch forward a bit, get a fair bit of arch back, spin all the way around, and tilt side to side a pretty dang good amount. Below the bright yellow belt and boxers, Strong Guy has pretty standard Marvel Legends style ball jointed hips. They let him kick, under 90 degrees, and get an okay split. It's not that bad. He's, of course, though, got the Marvel Legends style thigh cut, which lets you spin his legs all the way around. Double jointed knees, which are unfortunately pinned due to this being a slightly older Build-A-Figure, but he does have the Marvel Legends style ankles that can hinge backwards, forwards, and pivot side to side. So overall, for a character with, as unique body proportions as Strong Guy has, he does have fairly good articulation, although I would have liked a bit more range in the actual hips. Other than that, this guy has some pretty dang solid articulation for a super big and bulky character. Alright, now moving on to the figure comparisons, and I hope you guys don't mind, but I'm going to go through these very, very quickly since we've taken a look at a lot of X-Men figures recently. And either way, I can't think of many characters I have that are on the same team as Strong Guy. So, starting off with the standard male and female comparisons, we have Renew Your Vows, Spider-Man, and Spinneret. For a pretty good gauge of the size of a deluxe figure like Strong Guy, we have the Maximum Hulk. I mainly just like bringing this guy out, if I'm being honest. But hey, moving on to the X-Men, and we of course have to start out with the X-Men's most prolific member and everyone's favorite 5'4" angry Canadian, Wolverine, specifically the X-Men 97 and Marvel vs. Capcom versions of him. I'd also like to bring out Cyclops and the still work in progress custom Jean Grey, since these are the versions of these two in their X-Factor uniforms, albeit it was a different version of the team than the one Strong Guy was a part of. I'd also like to bring out Deadpool, since there were a couple versions of him in the original Strong Guy Build-A-Figure wave. But hey, as always for these X-Men reviews, we gotta bring out Professor X and Magneto. For some more X-Men villains, though, we have Mr. Sinister by Toy Biz, the deluxe version of the Blob that I reviewed in my previous video, and the figure I reviewed before that, the Marvel Legends Gamerverse Juggernaut, and wow. If you thought Strong Guy was a big figure, look at how dwarfed he is by this Juggernaut. And finally, here's the Marvel Legends Deluxe Strong Guy with Hitmonkey and Goliath. Alright, now that we've got the figure comparisons out of the way, I'd like to move on to one of my favorite parts of this figure, the accessories. Well, mainly one accessory in particular. But in terms of alternate hands, Strong Guy comes pre-packed in the box with a pair of fists, which makes sense. He's a strong guy. But he also has some new alternate hands that didn't come with the original. For example, this pair of accessory holding hands that we'll come back to in a second. and this singular thumbs up hand, which is a pretty neat touch. You know, having such a specific accessory like a thumbs up hand with a character as obscure as Strong Guy. He also comes with an alternate head, which is a more neutral, stoic look, which is, just like the yelling head, super accurate to the old Strong Guy art from the 1990s, but I do wish they included a third alternate head, that being just a repaint of the one from the original Build-A-Fig, which was a smiling head. I thought that was really expressive. And I feel like it would have gone especially well with, you know, the thumbs up alternate hand that came with this figure. You know, him grinning and giving you a thumbs up. Feel like it was a bit of a missed opportunity to not include a new version of that head. But there is one more accessory that I was hinting at for a fair bit of the video that does use these accessory holding hands. This massive dumbbell that Strong Guy can hold. If you're wondering about how big this thing is, it's on its side, it's taller than the actual Strong Guy figure, which certainly explains why the handle and the two, you know, barbells or whatever they're called, were actually separate in the box and you had to put this thing together. Of course, you can easily give this giant dumbbell to other figures. For example, it's obviously no problem for the Incredible Hulk to lift this thing. The same could easily be said about his cousin, the sensational She-Hulk. And of course, the amazing Spider-Man can do whatever a spider can, and what spiders do is lift massively oversized dumbbells. Alright, now that we're done with the accessories, let's talk about the price, and my overall thoughts on the figure, and actually, sort of Strong Guy as a whole. Now, the price for this figure is a pretty standard, you know, deluxe Marvel Legends price of $40, and I absolutely believe that this Strong Guy is worth it. It's a pretty dang good Build-A-Figure re-release. They improved the paint, added more accessories, and overall made a character like Strong Guy more accessible for people getting into the line that didn't want to try and get a years-old Build-A-Fig. And a lot of the new additions are really great. I love the head sculpts, I love the new bits of paint, and I especially love the accessories including the dumbbell. I think for the most part, his articulation is really good, and if you do have other figures from this era of X-Factor, he'll certainly fit in pretty dang well. I do have a couple minor complaints that sort of prevent me from saying that this figure is just a 10 out of 10 in terms of a Strong Guy action figure, at least. I feel like the articulation on the hips leaves a little bit to be desired. I sort of wished it got, you know, a 90-degree kick. The balancing on this figure is kind of a pain, which is to be expected from a figure as top-heavy as this, but still a problem. And I wish they included just a repackaging or even a new version of the original Strong Guy Build-A-Figure head that was smiling. But still, I really, really like this, you know, deluxe re-release. So overall, I'm going to give the Marvel Legends Strong Guy deluxe re-release a 9 out of 10. He's really good, and if you're a fan of this pretty obscure character, then I'd say you should absolutely pick him up. Now, I must confess something. I've never actually read a comic with Strong Guy in it. You may be asking why I bought this figure. Well, for a couple of years now, I've been sort of attached to Strong Guy's just overall design, just how utterly ridiculous he is, and that's what I love about his character. In fact, seeing images of the original Strong Guy Build-A-Fig was the reason I discovered this character. There's also the panel of him giving himself his codename when joining the X-Factor, being like, oh, well, every team has a Strong Guy in it, so you can call me Strong Guy. Because that is unbelievably hilarious. He names himself Strong Guy because he's a strong guy. That's absolutely perfect. And I feel like that sort of encapsulates what I like about Strong Guy. He's a completely ridiculous concept, and it's amazing. So what I'm trying to say here is, I'm really glad that the Marvel Legends team, first of all, made a figure of Strong Guy back in the Build-A-Figure wave, but then re-released it and put a lot more effort into it, with some of the new pieces and, bits of paint. It may seem ridiculous to say this, but I think I've had more fun with this Strong Guy figure than a lot of the other figures I got for Christmas, which includes stuff like the Juggernaut, Professor X, and Ghost Rider. But a lot of those reviews I haven't got done recording and uploading yet, so stay tuned. Either way though, if you're still here, well, first of all, thank you so much for watching, and second of all, have a great day, 'cause you deserve it. Bye-bye!